On Story is brought to you in part by the Alice Kleberg Reynolds Foundation, a Texas family providing innovative funding since 1979. On Story is also brought to you in part by the Bogle Family Vineyards, 6th-generation farmers and 3rd-generation winemakers based in Clarksburg, California, makers of sustainably grown wines that are a reflection of their family values since 1968. From Austin Film Festival, this is On Story, a look inside the creative process from today's leading writers, creators, and filmmakers. This week on Story, we're joined by celebrated writer, producer, and director Rian Johnson for a deep dive into his genre-bending filmmaking career. Johnson discusses his creative process behind the Knives Out franchise and the art of molding a great mystery.
Once you actually start writing, everything goes out the window, and it's the difference between looking at the map spread out on the big table with the generals and actually you get in the trenches and it's just you're trying to survive the day. That's been another thing that I've been trying to learn and get better at, is really trusting instincts once you get to the on-the-page writing part of it.
Today I'm going to start with still one of my favorites, which we played back when I was young and you were younger, which was Brick. I'm just curious, when you were starting off your career and clearly always a film lover, how did that come to you? What was your thought of, I'll tackle this as my first big feature project?
When I wrote Brick, I was right out of college, so I was 22, and your mind is always on very much thinking of the last phase of life you just got out of. And so what I was really mythologizing in my head at that point was high school and my experience there, and how high school felt very, very dangerous. Not because I was actually doing anything cool or dangerous, but just in the way that it's such an insular world. And when I went, it felt very socially stratified, and it felt like there were very strict rules. And it felt, in many ways, like when I connected with the author Dashiell Hammett, had started reading his books and expressed kind of an emotional truth of my memories of high school. So those two things weirdly made a lot of sense to me. For me, when I started making shorts and writing things, in high school and in college, I think when you begin out of necessity, there's a lot of seeing stuff that you love and imitating that. And I think that's a really important thing to do, because that then turns into, becomes your voice.
I feel like capturing the noir, I was watching it thinking, how many old movies were you watching as a kid? Because you captured a certain time of Hollywood in that, even though they were high school kids.
Okay. We know you're clean. And despite your motives, you've always been an asset to this office. And you're a good kid. I want to run some names past you. Hold it, we're not done here.
I was done here 3 months ago. I told you then I'd give you Jer, and that was that. I'm not your inside line, and I'm not your boy.
That's not very...
You know what I'm in if the wrong yegg saw me pulled in here?
What are you in?
No. And no more of these informal chats either. You got a discipline issue with me? Write me up or suspend me. I'll see you at the parent conference.
I was very aware that if the movie felt like just a pastiche of old movies, it would kind of be really boring. And so for me, what really got me excited about it was using kind of film noir and using them to try and get to some kind of weird expression of my experience of being a teenager and of high school, I guess, and trying to keep the focus really on that to make sure that it didn't become just sort of an empty sort of, parody of these other movies, I guess. I think especially when you're starting out, the notion of voice and of a clear voice can kind of get mythologized in a way that makes it seem intimidating and makes it seem like artists you admire kind of had this crystalline thing from the beginning.
That was a big hit at Sundance, and that was probably a first time that you were getting a lot of notice from folks.
Any notice. So I wrote Brick when I was 22. I didn't get it made when I was 22, though. I basically spent my 20s trying and failing to get it made. I made it when I was turning 30. So I think I was lucky in that Brick came out in 2005, I think 2006, and it was kind of right before the whole wave of Sundance filmmakers getting co-opted by franchise filmmaking kind of had come in. And I say that because the next movie I made was this really personal kind of like self-generated movie, and that's not because I had the vision or focus or discipline to say no to big offers. If at the time Gopher Man 8 had been offered me, I would have taken it in a heartbeat. I'm sure I would have. So I'm actually kind of thankful that ecosystem wasn't in place. So I just kind of sat down and wrote almost kind of a very second movie. It was called The Brothers Bloom, and it didn't really get much of a release. Nobody really saw it.
But it had a huge cast, and
we had a great cast. Yeah, it was, and we had a time of our lives making it, and it was an amazing experience.
Bloom and I will secure lodging. Miss Yingling will scout out the museum. You will go to the bank. That wire should have cleared if you put it in at Athens.
Cash?
No. Only movie thugs and Russians deal in suitcases of cash. You're gonna get a certified check.
Who the hell is that? Who is it?
A candygram. Max, it's us, for Christ's sake.
So in looking back, like what was the positive and the negative of that as far as your career?
It should have caused a much bigger stop than it did, actually. And this, again, is where the element of luck comes into it, because the whole reason it didn't is because I have a very good producer, and my producer, Ram Bergman, who I've been working with since Brick. After Brothers Bloom, I should have been probably done. I think that movie, like, it wasn't but it was a lot of money. It was like, at the time especially, I think our budget was like 17 million or something, and I think it made zero. And so it was this wonderful personal experience I had that just kind of and I felt terrible about that. Even if I was proud of the movie and the work we did, I felt like I had let a lot of people down on that side of things. I think maybe the upside of that is that when I wrote my next script, which was Looper, I really kind of put the screws to myself in the writing process, and had done this kind of big loose expression of all these things I loved. And I was like, okay, I'm going to focus in. I'm going to really focus in on this genre piece and still make it personal, but I'm going to really work on the craft of it and get as tight and entertaining as I possibly can. Because if I get one more shot at this might be my last shot.
I really love Looper, and it was one of those movies that kind of caught me by surprise. That was a little bit of a risky thing, too.
The answer as to how we were able to get this movie made is that Bruce Willis signed up for it. And once you can put Bruce Willis with a gun on the poster of a sci-fi movie, it's like, okay, at least we'll be able to take it to a marketplace and sell it, or can at least get a home video out of it.
Back when there was a home video.
Back when home video existed. So that's really the answer, is because Joe, who was a dear friend of mine and who was in a moment where he was kind of a rising star, he was a very cool get for the lead, and Emily Blunt, of course. But really, it was, with a genre piece, it was the fact that Bruce signed up. In that way, it kind of gave me another shot.
It's a tight script. What was your process in working through that script after that? You know, like, how did you approach that idea?
We could do like a whole panel just with people who've written time travel movies, because it is a really interesting thing to narratively in terms of writing. Yeah, that's a good idea. It's a good idea. That's free. That idea. It's for you. I feel like Looper, and the way I approach it, is almost on the other end of it, which is I started out just kind of thinking, okay, I'm going to approach time travel more as a fantasy element than as a kind of science fiction element, and use it basically just to facilitate this situation of a heightened version of a son telling a father, I'm not going to turn into you, and use it to that end and see how much I can skirt the audience having to do math in order to get there, basically, and see what other elements I can use to actually drive the narrative forward beyond the intricacies of who's traveling where and what are the implications of it. So a lot of the work in the script went into seeing how, with as little explanation as possible, I could make this basic thing in it work that had time travel kind of as at the heart of it.
Then I saw it. I saw a mom who would die for her son. A man who would kill for his wife. A boy, angry and alone, laid out in front of him the bad path. I saw it. And the path was a circle. Round and round. So I changed it.
And I'm curious, though, looking at the construction of something like that, and then, you know, the whole screenwriting conversations about flashbacks, et cetera, et cetera. In the construction of that, it gets messy, I'm sure, even for the writer, right?
Yeah, it was. I do have like a couple of really good writer friends who, to this day, I still run stuff by. And with Looper, I did like an entire draft of it and showed it to a few people and then threw the entire second half out. But I think, I mean, to answer your question, I think the thing that it just kept coming back to was this kind of horse sense that as opposed to kind of setting rules for using flashbacks or not using flash forwards, or even as opposed to thinking of it in terms of the complexity of what's going on, thinking of it in terms of is the story that we actually care about being driven forward in each scene, and is the task of the character that we're following clear? Because I think if you just keep that thread, the audience will go through quite a lot with you. And the only real danger of complexity is of you as the writer kind of losing that basic spine. And that's, you know, in here writes, I mean, you know, that's where all the work goes to, is just your own little obsessions can spin these little spider webs that seem beautiful, but end up, you take a step back and realize they're detours from what the main drive of the character is actually about. And that's just the work, is kind of figuring out and clearing those away.
A lot of your scripts are very complicated. I mean, there's Glass Onion, Knives Out. Yeah. There has to be some process that you have of analyzing that complication as you're doing it.
Every film I sit down to these days, I feel like I'm trying to make it less complicated, and I keep failing. For me, I mean, there's a million ways to do it. Me personally, I'm a big story structure person, as that's where I start. And I work in these little moleskin notebooks, and I basically will spend the first 80% of the whole writing process outlining. And I draw these little arcs, and after 8 months of work, if I can get to the point where I have the whole movie laid out on one little mini moleskin page, then I can kind of hold the whole thing in my brain and see it. But the thing that ends up leading to intricacy, to use a nice word for it, is the fact that you're zoomed back in Google Maps, and then obviously you start telling the story and start zooming in, and that little blue line on the page is a raging river that you have to figure out how to cross.
What I loved about The Last Jedi, and I am not a Star Wars junkie, I did see the original one in a movie theater as a kid. Yours was as fun as the original fun movie. Okay. So it was, and I come to this with I have no social media and never have, so I have no idea what happened on
Well, I can tell you everyone on social media agrees with you, so you're in good company. Don't need to check it, just believe me on that.
Why I bring that up is that movie sort of took me back to why you love movies, why you originally loved movies. 80s movies were great. They were fun. They weren't important. I'd like to hear like how when that some huge opportunity gets handed to you that way, and how your mind thought of it. Because I do think all your movies are fun. Looper's a fun sci-fi. So, what were you thinking about in your approach to the canon, and what were you thinking about in your approach as your own storyteller?
It had to be personal in the sense that I had to just kind of tap into what I love about Star Wars and what makes it fun for me and what brings me joy about it, and all of those different things growing up and all those childhood memories, and kind of tap into them in a really pure way and just try and channel them. And then also, it was also an interesting situation in terms of the baton handoff of it, because it was taking this story that Larry and JJ had started, and then trying to figure out as honestly and organically as possible how to draw that forward, and then leave it at a place where it can be handed off next. So in that way, it was an interesting writing challenge. But the basis of it was really just trying to. It makes me happy that you described it as fun. To me, it was just trying to figure out what brings me the most joy from my memories of my childhood memories of those movies, and how to get that on the page.
What was the process then, working with a team trying to break a story like that fits into the world, that has an IP attached to it?
It didn't feel very different than doing an original. I felt like I was able to kind of find my own way into it and what I cared about, and kind of write it. I think from the outside, it can appear to be a big kind of machine. My experience specifically on The Last Jedi was a really just personal, wonderful kind of little creative bubble that we worked in, to the point where, and I think once you actually get your hands in the dirt and start working on anything, the outside world kind of goes away to some extent. So it's not like there was all this external pressure on us all. We were just kind of in the sandbox playing with our toys and kind of figuring out what we'd love to see in a Star Wars movie.
Is there something in particular in that film, like a particular segment or scene that you're particularly proud of, as far as keeping to the voice of those Star Warses?
I think Empire is probably my favorite of the three, tied with the first one, but I love Return of the Jedi. And the final intercutting sequence of Return of the Jedi, that final build with the throne room.
She's running away.
No, she isn't.
I worked really, really hard to try and build kind of a big intercutting climactic thing.
Fire on that cruiser!
That in the case of The Last Jedi leads up to Laura Dern's character running the spaceship at light speed.
Execute.
I watched that run of it, and I'm just like, oh, that feels good. That feels kind of like the momentum of that. But that was something that I remember as a kid was like such a, I don't know, it's just so well done in Return of the Jedi. And the way all the different threads kind of lead up to this big climax, and the different levels of how something has to end in order to be satisfying. And I don't know, I feel like this does. Yeah, the Return of the Jedi did. And so trying to kind of get to that in that sequence was a fun challenge.
So we're going to move on to Knives Out. Again, I just think that when that came out, it was one of those movies that you kind of have to see it in a movie theater first. It felt really great to see it in a movie theater. And came out of it like people skipping. Where did that come from? Like, I mean, you could feel the seeds of Agatha Christie in there.
I mean, the way that you described that was kind of, that makes me really, really, really happy, because I did grow up reading Agatha Christie. I grew up as a murder mystery nut. But the real place that movie came from is remembering when I was a kid in, the early 80s, and watching with my whole family, usually off a VHS tape, everyone kind of sitting on the floor gathered around and watching the Agatha Christie adaptations, watching the original Death on the Nile with Peter Ustinov, watching Murder on the Orient Express with Albert Finney, watching Evil Under the Sun. And you got a big all-star cast, all kind of like, playing off of each other and just having the best time, and just feeling like these movies both feel very adult, and it's something the whole family can watch together, and it's something that just feels like the most fun thing a movie can possibly be.
Oh, that's where you were all night.
What the hell were you doing in the bathroom all night?
Nothing.
Swatting Syrian refugees.
No, I was not.
Alt-right troll.
Liberal snowflake.
I don't know what any of that means.
Means your son's a little creep.
Oh, my son's a creep.
Guys, just... Walt, he was in the bathroom.
Yeah, he was in the bathroom.
Joylessly to pictures of dead deer.
Oh, you know what, Richard? You want to go?
Bet, Skippy, let's go.
You want to go? Come on, Daddy. No, watch out, Daddy. Stop! Oh, come on, I've been waiting for this my whole life.
Stop it!
I can handle myself.
Stop it!
I can handle it.
Oh, my God.
You got to do this more often.
That was kind of like the target on the wall for me a little bit, is to kind of capture something that could feel like that. We just shot the third movie this summer, actually. I'm editing it right now. I'm playing hooky from the... I'm excited about it. It's called Wake Up Dead Man, and it's so different from Glass Onion, and it's a little closer in tone to Knives Up. It's even different from that. For me, the fun part of this is kind of the murder mystery genre is so expansive, and using these movies to really take different swings every time is part of what's fun about it.
Just the set alone is so complicated in there, and just looking at how some of those pieces in that set work into your story. But, going down to whatever that knife display was that, gives you your climax in the film is so awesome. It's so built out. How are you managing to put that to your team?
I gave them the reference of another one of my favorite movies, Sleuth, the original with Laurence Olivier and Michael Caine. And the mansion in Sleuth is filled with it's just this rich kind of tapestry of all these things. And that kind of thing you can just kind of fill up the background with. The real important work, especially in a movie that has a very complicated script, is to absolute clarity, both in terms of communicating to your creative team, but that means first and foremost knowing it yourself on the page, scene to scene. And that's a lesson that I think, for me, Hitchcock is kind of the ultimate example of absolute storytelling clarity at every single beat. I think that's kind of the essence to how he builds suspense, is why you're looking at what you're looking at every single moment of a Hitchcock movie.
Watching it a second or third time I didn't even notice that happened the first time it happened, I guess, as you would in those kind of Agatha Christie kind of stories. The little clues, you don't know are clues until later.
There's a little bit of kind of that way lies madness to that. You have to, the reality is, at least for me especially, and that's one lesson I feel like I've slowly gotten better at with learning and making these movies, is really all that you need to focus on is the main spine of any scene. Once you get real human beings on set, and once you get the art department filling it up with, stuff that has a mandate in terms of the characters and everything, all of the little misdirects and details, all of that stuff is going to be there and it's going to fill itself up. I think that it's enough work. I think your job is really to define the main thread of every single scene dramatically. And if you've done that, and if you've built out characters that sustain and have their own arcs over the course of it, and if you've done all of this, all that other stuff is going to be there in the background. But really, if you just keep your eye on the ball, I feel like the world itself ends up filling itself out.
Glass Onion, was it an easier write than...
No, it's not. Last Onion was a different challenge. It was a whole different kind of tone, and that was kind of like a big, kind of broad, kind of vacation movie, vacation mystery, which is another subset of the genre that I really love. But that's also what's fun of it. Also, I just feel like writing, man, you guys, writing is hard. it just keeps getting harder. I feel like it should get easier, but it feels like it's harder and harder. I think anyone who's got too much confidence and says this is the way to do it, kid. Never do this, never do that. Beware of those words, I think. And the reality is everyone does it a different way. You got to find your own method of doing it. And the essential thing is to build your own voice, and that comes from not from studying screenwriting, but from having experiences in life and reading great books and meeting interesting people and putting yourself outside your comfort zone in life and kind of building your soul up. And that's really the well that you end up drawing from for each story.
You've been watching a conversation with Rian Johnson on Story. On Story is part of a growing number of programs in Austin Film Festival's On Story project that also includes the On Story radio program, podcast, book series, and the On Story archive, accessible through the Whitliff Collections at Texas State University. To find out more about On Story and Austin Film Festival, visit onstory.tv or austinfilmfestival.com.